Hi, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Janine Plesh. I created this podcast as a means of self-expression, to share with others some of the insights, wisdom, practices, stories, and people who have inspired me on my journey as a yoga teacher, practitioner, and evolving human being. My vision of the world is one of a conscious world, where all people understand that suffering is optional, and that who we are is abundant, free, and ever-expanding joy. With that said, let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome. Today we're speaking about New Year's resolutions. I know many of you, maybe like me, are kind of spread along the spectrum of some years really not enjoying the New Year's resolution vibe, and then other years you're into it, or maybe you find yourself somewhere in the middle. Several years ago, I was quite a pessimist about New Year's resolutions, only because my experience of them it was a very superficial experience, and I felt that setting New Year's resolutions is crappy. It's not going to work. Nobody sticks to them anyways, so why bother? And also, as I learned more about yoga and setting intentions, I realized that we can set intentions, we can create resolutions at any time of the year. Why only do it at the beginning of the year? Why put so much energy into doing them at the beginning of the year? Especially if we're not going to stick to them. So although I do understand that perspective, I have lived it, and I think that it is a valid perspective, especially if setting resolutions brings you kind of frustration at the end of the month of January, when you realize that you've broken all of your promises to yourself, and you just feel like, okay, like I did, I just realized I didn't want to keep disappointing myself. So I needed a better approach, a better way of approaching the whole resolution thing, and rather than putting that much pressure on myself at the beginning of the year. So if you're in that category, I definitely understand, and keep doing what you're doing, especially if it's working for you. Now, what I'm going to present today is more like a different way of approaching New Year's resolutions that can be used at the beginning of the year, but can also be used any time of the year. And it's really about when we're setting new goals for ourselves, and more specifically here, new intentions or resolutions. And I'll use intention and resolution interchangeably because for me, they're pretty much the same thing, where intention might be what experience am I looking for, or what am I trying to cultivate internally, where resolutions for me are what are the actions and behaviors that will bring me to that intention, that will so whereas like intention is like the idea, resolutions for me are like the action and behaviors that allow me to express that idea. Now, I think that it's important to point out that when we're talking about these things, I'm looking at it specifically from the yogic perspective and from the perspective of developing personally, like personal development. And on the yogic journey seeks to the intention of the yogic journey is really about self-recognition. Now, of course, if you come from other philosophical backgrounds or yogic traditions, the goal might be a bit different. But from the non-dual tantric philosophy tradition, the goal is to know ourselves, or to become aware of ourselves in the most fundamental aspect of who we are. So in other words, to know our inner light, to know that we are this radiant being, and then to be able to, through our actions and behaviors, be able to express and experience that radiance. So in my exploration of New Year's resolutions, or in what I'm going to also present today, I'm looking at it more from that perspective of that being the highest intention, and that all of our actions and our behaviors kind of are rooted in this deep desire to experience ourselves at a deeper level, to have a more intimate connection rather than a superficial connection with who we are, to have an intimate connection with the depths of our being rather than staying on the surface and numbing in a way, numbing through our actions and behaviors, numbing any of any way that the vibrancy comes out, which is, I think, for many of us who have dependencies, who are dependent on vices, whether it's drug, alcohol, social media, food, or other behaviors or activities, if we're dependent on those things in an unhealthy way, then that will usually disconnect us from who we intrinsically are, and actually kind of suppress our inner light, or our connection to that inner light. It will distance ourselves from ourselves. And we see this a lot with people who have, intense anxiety or depression, that there's like a yearning to want to get back to themselves, and yet there's a whole bunch of behaviors that they've adopted that kind of keep them away, whether it's negative thinking or self-indulgent behaviors that actually keep them away from knowing that innermost self. So, and it's that collection of behaviors that we would then, that then brings them into a state of what I would say psychologists probably call anxiety or depression, and a lot of these deeper, more clinical, behavioral, like chronic behavioral issues. Now, again, disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do read things on Google, so that's just my theory. Anyways, why is it that at this time of the year, we want to maybe start thinking about establishing New Year's resolutions? Well, because collectively we have all agreed that this is the new year. This is the start of something new. And that collective ideology brings with it this kind of energy. Collectively, we are creating this vibrant energy, this big wave of energy, this big current of electricity that anybody in the world can connect into and use to charge their life, to realign their lives. Now, this doesn't mean that if you set your resolutions, if you create resolutions in January, that they're going to continue. We do have a responsibility to maintain them, but at this time of the year, whether you're for or against resolutions, you cannot deny that there is a powerful force. There's something different, call it powerful or not, there's something different in the air at this time of the year. Some people will experience it as a sense of hopefulness. We have a blank slate in front of us. Some people will feel it as, will maybe even be disgusted by it. Oh, it's just a new year. It's just the new year, And then other people are just indifferent and they kind of watch and witness and they say, oh, yeah, it's the new year, but regardless, there's a recognition that something is different than every other day. And that difference is that charge. It is the charge that we are collectively creating. And I realized in my time away from creating resolutions, I realized that it is a powerful time that we can all take advantage of and we can all plug into to help, especially if we're on a spiritual path or path of personal development. We can use it to our advantage. And of course, on yogic and spiritual or the personal development paths, usually what is of benefit to us personally is usually of benefit to others as well, directly or indirectly. So that being said, what are kind of the things that we can do to properly realign our properly plug in and align ourselves with our highest intention, with our highest self? Well, the first thing is by realizing that just because you say that you want to realign, just because we say that we want to realign with our higher self, that may be an intention, but it's not necessarily a resolution. It doesn't tell us what are the actions and behaviors we should be doing. It doesn't, and therefore, and many people, and this is kind of the trap in the spiritual world, is a lot of people will stay in this space of creating resolutions or intentions, but not actually creating the actions or the behaviors, or really pinning down the actions and behaviors that correspond with that idea or that intention. So what's an example of that? Well, in the spiritual world, I mean, in the world of yoga and yogis and especially modern day new age, there's a lot of language that surrounds like, the new year, I'm going to bring in more peace into my life. I want to bring in more connection with others. And, I want to be more compassionate with myself. And although on one level you might understand what that means, but what does that look like? How does that play out? How is that embodied in the actions that we do? And what are we doing now that is not that? What does it look like to do that? And what does it not look like to do that from your own experience? So for example, being more compassionate to myself might be that in the morning, and this has been my experience, is like in the morning, I'm very harsh. I can be very harsh on myself of like getting out of bed. And if I miss my alarm clock or if I press snooze too many times, I'm very I'll beat myself up. And so compassion for myself might mean that in the morning, I wake up and I allow myself to press snooze a certain amount of times, something that's realistic. And I say maybe an affirmation to myself, of a compassion affirmation that allows me to be in that space where I know, okay, I need more rest. Obviously, I'm pushing my snooze button often, so I need more rest. So that compassion might take on the behavior of allowing myself to push snooze a certain amount of time without beating myself up and saying these affirmations of kindness to myself. So But that would be, again, the action and the behavior that goes with that. So I'm not just going to say, oh, I want to bring in more compassion into my life, because, again, a lot of people say that, but then they don't. It's like, what does that mean? What does that look like? So it's important that if you're going to have a more esoteric, a more emotional resolution, that you connect that with certain actions. How are you not doing that now? Are you beating yourself up? Okay, well, when are you beating yourself up? And then how can you change those behaviors so that, like, what behavior will replace beating yourself up? What is the compassionate behavior or action that you will take when you feel that urge to beat yourself up? Because I can guarantee that that will come up, because we're not going to just abolish things that we've been practicing our whole life or for the last year. We're not just going to abolish it overnight. And we need some tools, actions, and behaviors that we can go to that align with what we're trying to create. So to make it a little bit easier to understand, I'm going to focus more on concrete things, and just know that all of these things should still circle back to connecting you to your higher self. And what I mean by your higher self is the self that is fulfilled, the self that is joyful, the person that you know you are deep inside, that you are, regardless of the situation, that person inside of you is constant, is consistent, is always and ever present. But that, unfortunately, you don't have, for whatever reason, because of the conditioning or the habits that you've taken on, you seem to lose touch or disconnect from that being that is within you from time to time, or most times, if you're like me, or like the average person who is, we seek to, I seek to, as a yogi myself, my own kind of personal mission is to be connected with my innermost self most times, if not all the time. And my mission in doing that is to kind of overcome and override or reprogram a lot of the conditioning that a lot of the unhealthy conditioning that keeps me away from fully expressing my own inner light, my own authentic self. So let's do an example. So the first thing to do is to just know, what is it that, if we're looking at the new year, so let's come back to the new year, and what you'll want to know is, what is it, if you look back on your 2022, what are the actions and behaviors? What are some like key actions and behaviors that you don't want to bring into the new year? What are some of the things that you're doing, maybe some habits that you have that you're like, oh, that for sure I want to keep in 2022. I don't want to bring that into 2023. So write those down, and, don't try to solve all world problems in one sitting. Take the most obvious things. Take the things that are really like on the tip of your tongue, that are, like those things that it's just like, for me, it's the things that I wake up in the morning and I'm just going through my day and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. And I seem to repeat that every day, or every so often the same thing comes up. It's like, oh, that thing, And it could be a very simple thing. It doesn't have to be something really hard to overcome, but just something like that kind of rubs you the wrong way of the way that you behave, or the way that you, or an action that you do. And so write that down, and also write down what are the things that you want. So write the things that you don't want to bring, that you're like, I'm done with that. I want to say no to that. And write down the things also, if there's things that you want to create, maybe like the classical, like you want to lose weight, but, or you want to eat healthier, or you like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What are some of the actions and behaviors that you want to embrace and embody in 2023? And I look at these things as what we call the play of yes and no. So what am I saying no to and what am I saying yes to? Or vice versa, what am I saying yes to and what am I saying no to? And there's going to be some obvious no's and there's going to be some obvious yeses. So write those down all in one column. And this is usually something that's usually most people stop there. They stop there. They're like, okay, those are my resolutions. I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do these things, and I'm going to do these things, and I'm going to, and that's usually where it stops. But what I encourage people to do is to realize that there's actually two sides of a coin. So on one side is that first column that you just created of all the things that are obvious to you that you want to say no to. No, I don't want to bring that in. And obvious things that you want to say yes to. And they're all in that first column. Some of them might be connected. Some of them might not be really connected to each other. And then in a second column beside that one, I want you to write down what is the opposite of that behavior. So for example, one of the things that I have is in my first column, I have no social media. No social media scrolling in the morning. And the more specific you can get, like the more you know where you use that behavior or action, the better it will be. So the more specific you can get, the better. So for me, it's social media scrolling. I adopted that over the pandemic as a way of feeling connected to other people. I think many people are on that, have gotten into that habit of depending a little bit more on social media than we did before the pandemic. And I got into the habit of, like, when I wake up, my alarm clock goes off, the phone is in my hand, and I will, rather than get out of bed, I will scroll. I'll scroll through social media. I'll sometimes even look at my emails, even though it's not time to work. And that kind of puts off my whole day. I can easily spend a couple minutes to an hour in bed just scrolling. On bad days, I would say it could go up to an hour. And I definitely feel that is something that I can easily change because it was not a part of my habit before. So I'm like, no more of that in 2023. Now I can leave it at that. And of course, if I focus on that, the thing is, and you've probably heard this before, is where you put your focus, that's where all of your energy will go. So I can wake up in the morning and be like, no social media, no social media, no social media. And all that my mind is thinking about is social media. However, in that second column, what I would do is I would say, okay, well, if I'm saying no to social media, what am I saying yes to? I'm saying yes to getting up and doing my morning routine. And of course, your yes is always going to be related back to your highest intention, which is, yes, if I'm saying no to social media, I'm saying yes to expressing myself and setting myself up for success for the day. And for me, that means that I get up instead of scroll and I begin my morning routine, which is already well established. I have a good morning routine. And I would like to be able to adhere to it more frequently. And I know that I can do that if I wasn't scrolling social media. So, but the two are the same, on the same coin. It's the two sides of the same coin. What are you saying no to? And what are you saying yes to? Or if you're saying yes to something, what is it that you're saying no to? Because a lot of you might be saying, like I have, is I want to go to the gym at least 2 to 4 times a week. And for me, going to the gym is very important in my week for my mental health and my fitness and just keeping my body in movement and active and strong. And so going 2 to 4 times a week, very important. And I usually go in the evening after work. Now, however, if I just say go to work, guys, go to the gym after work, what ends up happening is, for some people, that's fine. They're going to go to the gym easily. But for others, there's like something drawing them at home. It's like there's for me, it's like, oh, I'm finished my day. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm going home. So I actually have to say no to driving home. So I'm saying no to driving home, but I'm also saying no to driving home, to watching my TV show, perhaps. I'm saying no to watching the 2 hours that I would be at the gym. I'm going to miss my 2 hours of my TV show, or I'm going to miss 2 hours of quality time with my boyfriend, or I'm going to miss 2 hours of time where I could be eating. And however, and for me, in my case, it's usually I'm missing the time that I usually would eat supper. And therefore, I have to make sure that I equip myself with some snacks so that I'm less likely, I can easily say no, right? Because I have those snacks. I will no longer have the excuse of, oh, well, I'm hungry, I need to eat, which is this, we need to eat to survive. But I have my snacks, which will tide me over. I'll be able to do my workout, and then I can go home and eat my supper. So if you have something on your list that you're saying yes to, or yes to family time, like, yes, I want to spend more time with my friends. And how many of us have said that? But then what are you saying no to? What are you going to be saying no to? And because I think that it's important to know, KNOW, it's important to know what you're saying no, NO, to, so that it's not a surprise. When your friends ask to see you, or when you feel the need to see your friends, you're not disappointed that, oh, I have to let go of this thing that I'm doing. Or you set aside, you have specific things that you're going to set aside that okay, instead of doing this, I'm going to spend some quality time with my friends or with my family. I know for a lot of parents, it's like, oh, well, I have to clean the house. The house is messy. Okay, well, does the house have to be cleaned every day at the same time? Or can you, or all day long? Or is there a portion of that time? Can you give up some of that cleaning time to spend time with the family? So maybe family time or time with friends means that you're going to have to say no to some of that cleaning and do that cleaning later on, right? And a lot of my parents' friends are like, my house is never clean, like as much as you clean, right? It's like, as much as you clean, there's always going to be something else to clean. If you own a house, you fix one thing, there's always 100 other things that you'll need to fix. So may as well say yes to something that really fulfills you, and then take care of those other things that, things that it's like the never-ending list of cleaning and fixing and whatever. Just, you'll get to that list afterwards. I'm not saying neglect your responsibilities. Fulfill your responsibilities, but also learn how to prioritize. So knowing what it is that we're saying no to requires that we know what we're also saying yes to. Because if there's behaviors and actions that you're doing now that you don't want to do, chances are you're gonna bump into them. If it's like, if there's somebody that that you are trying to avoid at work, or in the street or whatever, you're trying to avoid them, chances are you're going to bump into them. So when you see them, what's your plan B? Where are you going to put that energy? Where are you going to divert to? So if I bump into that moment where I pick up my phone and I'm tempted to social media scroll, I want to know that I can just okay, jump out of bed, go. I'm saying yes to jumping out of bed. And if you have something that you're saying yes to, you want to know the potential obstacle. What is the common obstacle? What is the thing that you think will get in the way of that? And maybe it's worth it for you, maybe not, to ask yourself why, and maybe, if let's say I know for going to the gym or going to a yoga class, a lot of people, they have families or they have other responsibilities, real strong responsibilities, like taking care of dependent people, dependent children, or elderly parents or grandparents. And, those are really important responsibilities. So maybe find another thing that you can say no to, rather than saying no to, saying yes to going to your gym and saying no to your children, spending quality time with your children. Choose something else. Is there something else during the day that you can say no to? And if there's not, then just put that to the side. Don't focus on it right now. Put that to the side for a time where you feel that you can. And this is another pitfall that people do, is they put things on their list that they clearly, that there's no way. There's no way that they can do it. Now, I always believe when there's a will, there's a way. But some people don't have the will. So if the will is not there for you, don't beat yourself up over it. Put it to the side. You can put it on another list, just in your journal. Just say okay, these are the things that I aspire to. And that's it. You just keep them there and, let life do its work. And as things kind of align themselves, you might see, oh, okay, now there's time to go to the gym. And maybe the gym is not the gym, but maybe it's going for a walk with your family, so that way you get your exercise and your family time at the same time. So you have to be creative with these things. But the point here that I want to highlight is just make sure that you have both sides of the coin covered. You know what you're saying no to, and you know what the corresponding yes is. So if you have any questions about that, I'd love to hear your comments, and I'd love to hear what your New Year's resolutions are. Both the yes and the no. What are you saying yes to? And then what are you saying no to? What are you leaving behind in 2022? And what are you moving towards or creating? What actions and behaviors are you going to be taking on in 2023? I'd love to hear from you, and please share with each other in the comments section below. I look forward to seeing some of you perhaps in the new year. If taking yoga classes is part of your yes, I hope to see you, whether it be online or in person. And I wish you all the best in 2023. And remember, you can start, although this is a really powerful time of the year, and there's a nice kind of movement, a collaboration of energy that is coming towards all of us right now, you can still plug into the universe, plug into the Shakti, that creative force that is always ever present. And at any time of the year, you can create your own January 1st in the summer or in the winter, or, at any time of any season, any day. Feel free to press that reset button and reestablish your resolutions. It's never too late. And I wish you all the best. Happy New Year. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I'd love to hear from you. Please share below, click the like button, and subscribe to my channel for more videos and podcasts just like this one. Until next time, breathe and be well. Namaste.